Namaste. We have another fascinating topic for this webinar, reflecting on time. In the English language, if somebody asks you, what is the time? What is the time? Then the answer, for example, at this moment in India would be 8:35 p.m. But if somebody asks you, what is time? Without the article the, what is time? Then the answer is very difficult to give. Even in modern physics, what time is a daunting question. In this webinar, we are not going to discuss what the time is, but what time is. What is time? Physics has its approach, and Vedānta has its own approach. About time, there are lots of things said. In fact, time as we normally understand is divided into the past, the present, and the future. In the Kathopanishad, Nachiketa asks an unbelievable question to Lord Yama. He says, if you know, if you see some truth which is not touched by the past, present, or the future, O Lord, please tell me. Anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha. Bhuta is the past, bhavya is the future. By implication, Nachiketa means the present also. If you see something other than the past, present, and future, tell me what it is. Vedanta has always deliberated on this issue of what is beyond time. Great mystics, great seers have said, time and timeless are two levels of perception. We are caught in time in our ordinary, mundane, egoistic existence, and in pure self-knowledge, we are in the timeless. The European mystic a few centuries ago, called Mr. Eckhart, said something very powerful. He says, time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. And not only time, but temporalities. Not only temporal things, but temporal affections. Not only temporal affections, but the very taint and smell of time. Mr. Eckhart, a great mystic of Europe, said, time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no obstacle greater than time to God. So what is this time which is trapping us, keeping us captive in the net of Maya? Once Vibhaji and I and a couple of others, sitting in a house in Bowling Green, Kentucky, asked Siri, the artificial intelligence expert in the iPhone, tell us a joke. And Siri on the iPhone said, once past, present, and future went into a coffee shop and the atmosphere became tense. So there are jokes and jokes about time too. Past, present, and future went into a coffee shop. You know, in grammar, past, present, and future are called tenses. You have tenses, you have moods, and the joke goes, the coffee shop now had a tense atmosphere because three tenses at one time went into the coffee shop. In my high school days, I had heard another joke. If an elephant is standing upon the fence of your house, what is the time? And the answer is, if an elephant could stand on your fence, it's time you change the fence. So these are from sublime to the ridiculous. Coming back to serious consideration of time, let me stay a little more on the Vedānta. In the Upanishads, as I already quoted one line from Kathopanishad, there is a pointer to something that is free of time. In yet another mantra, namely the first chapter, third valli and 15th mantra, there is an expression, anadyanantam mrityu mukhat pramuchyate. There is a truth which is anadi, without a beginning, ananta, without an end. Knowing this truth, anadi anantam mrityu mukhat pramuchyate. We are freed from the jaws of death. And who is saying this? Lord Yama, who is Mrityu Devata. In Dakshinamurti Stotra of Adi Shankaracharya, we have in the very second mantra, starting Bijasyantari Vankuro Jagadidam and so on, the third line goes, Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitrya Chitri Kritam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. We salute Sri Dakshinamurti, the Supreme Truth, who is like a magician who throws at us his magic. And in that magic, in the structure of that magic, you have Desha and Kala. Sri Ramana Maharshi in Saddarshanam says, there is so much of discussion about the past and the future. Do past and future have any reality at all except for the present? Bhutam bhavishyatcha bhavat swakale tadvartamanasya vihaya tattvam hasyana kim syad gata bhavi charcha vinaika sankhyaam gananeva loke. Isn't it ridiculous, laughable to discuss the past and the future without understanding the truth of the present, says Sri Maharshi, and remarks that the past, when you had met it, was present. The future, when you will meet it, is going to be the present. There is only the present, but alas, in our egoistic living, we are never in the present. We project into the future through our imagination, or we brood on the bygone events of the past. That is where, other than clock time, chronological time, other than the calendar which says today is June 17, yesterday was June 16, tomorrow is June 18, etc., other than this clock time or the chronological time, because of our fear of the future or sometimes desire about future, there comes into the picture something called psychological time. Where there is no desire, where there is no fear, there is no psychological time. Psychological time breeds on the ground of wanting to become. We have a picture of who we are, which is very questionable. Maharshi Ramana constantly says, ask yourself who you are. In the material world, we carry a picture of who we are, and the old habit doesn't leave us when we come to the so-called spiritual field. In spirituality also, we are never tired of judging ourselves, labeling ourselves. I am way behind. I have to get ahead. My meditation is not good. My japa is failing. I am insensitive. I'm not able to love people. I'm a selfish guy. In 1,000 ways, we have a picture of who we are. In the materialistic world, it was what my bank balance was or how influential I am in the society. Those were the criteria. In the so-called spiritual world, we think, I am a kami, I am a krodhi, I haven't overcome desire or anger, and so many ways. That is one picture of who I am, which is a mischief of thought. Then there is a picture of who I should become. In the materialistic world, I must be 10 times richer than what I am now. I must have influence around the country. I must be popular. This kind of goals. In the spiritual world, I must be free of anger, free of desire, free of attachment. I should be a great detached person, a picture. When there are these two pictures, what I am and what I should be, psychological time is necessarily created. So what is this time? Vedānta uncompromisingly says time is a very basic element of our egoistic perception of life, of the universe, of where we are. In waking state, we see names and forms. We see the name and form of what we call ourselves. And these names and forms, nama, rupa, in the form of others, you and me, tat, yushmad, and asmat. In threefold ways, this spread of names and forms seem to have a movement. They are changing, and we are flabbergasted. We are wonderstruck at the change. We look at somebody wearing a new dress, a new suit or a new sari, and we say, oh, she is looking so good. He is looking very smart, and I think I don't look so good. So we are, in that sense, wonderstruck. And we constantly, without being aware, feed the sense of I in a certain form. So in the waking world, we have a waker ego, and where there is ego, there is psychological time, there is chronological time. The Vedanta bundles both psychological and chronological time and says all of them together is part of the adhyasa, an appearance. In dream, there is another bundle of space-time, X, Y, Z, and T, another bundle. In deep sleep, there is no time, there is no self, there is no ignorance, there is no, in slang English they say there is no nothing. Oh, not exactly nothing. I am. The pure self shines in all brilliance in sleep. Let me quickly clarify. A lot of you have studied Vedanta according to what is called the Vyakhyana Prasthana. According to that, there is a model where they put waking, dream, and deep sleep on one axis of time. And therefore, they talk of going from waking to dream to deep sleep, like, you go from Bombay to Delhi to Jammu, or New York to Atlanta to Orlando. It is in space, and in time also you have a movement. You go from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Like that, can we go from waking to dream to deep sleep? It is a presumption on the part of the Vyakhyanakaras. It is said that Shankara himself didn't say this, but Vyakhyanakaras, not the Bhashyakara. Shankara, the Bhashyakara, throwing light on Upanishads, talked about an avidya bhumi and a vidya bhumi. In the vidya bhumi, there is no time, there is no movement. In the avidya bhumi, the three states are granted an existence. This is a very profound and very involved topic. We will again take up this avastatraya viveka another time. But now you may say, what is this another time? That is within the appearance, within the adhyaropa, within the adhyasa. Otherwise, as Gaudapada says in Mandukya Karika, Gnate dvaitam na vidyate. Upadeshad ayam vadaha gnate dvaitam na vidyate. He uses the expression dvaitam na vidyate. We may as well say gnate kālo na vidyate. Upadeshad ayam vadaha. In a webinar, in a class, in an instruction, a lot of things are given validity. After all, the students are anchored in that falsehood. The teacher, though she sees the timeless, has to use the language of time because she has to deliver the job. Therefore, Gaudapada says, Upadeshat, as suitable, as conducive to the scenario, to the setting of instruction, ayam vadaha, ayam kālasya vadaha, in this present context. Gnate, when your eyes open to the reality, which is not a party at all to any of these three, really speaking, the waking and dream states, there is no state, then that, upon knowing that, gnate kālo na vidyate, we can see, we can say like that. Like we said in last week about space, about time too, a single webinar is hardly enough. There is a whole lot of deliberation that is required. In the synopsis we sent to all of you, inviting you to this webinar, we quoted Bhagavad Gita in the 11th chapter, in the Vishwarupa Darshana. Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, Kalosmi lokakshaya krit pravriddaha. I have pravriddha, I have risen, I have grown, I have assumed this huge figure here, pravriddha, lokakshaya krit, all set to destroy the entire creation. Kalosmi, the first word is I am time. I must admit hastily, some commentators on Gita may interpret the word kāla over there as death and destroyer and not time, but some others may accommodate both. For in the Sanskrit language, the word kāla is used for death as well as for time. When somebody dies, people with a certain refined language say, oh, our grandfather became kāla vasha. Kāla vasha means kāla has taken him away. And kāla is mrityu, kāla is samaya also. Bhagavad Gita throws light on the perplexing nature of time in its own way at several places. I would like to quote one more from chapter 8. And there it is said, Sahasra Yuga Paryantam Aharyad Brahmano Viduhu Ratrim Yuga Sahasrantam Teho Ratra Vido Janah. Those who know the secrets of time know that one day of Lord Brahma, not a Brahman of Vedānta, Lord Brahma, the four-faced member of the Trinity, Brahma, Vishnu, Maheshwara. One day of Lord Brahma equals 1,000 yugas of you and me. And so is the case with one night of Brahma, another 1,000 yugas of you and me. Oh my! Does it mean that Brahma's time is different, our time is different? Isn't it one time? Time is something absolute. That is what, now let us enter a little physics. That is what till 1905 AD, everybody imagined, because a number of scientists, of whom the most prominent one was Isaac Newton. Newtonian physics made time absolute. What does absolute mean here? Time is the same thing whether it is you or me, a bird or an angel. Time is irrespective of place, irrespective of observer, irrespective of a person, irrespective of who is going through an experience. Time, they were talking of course, chronological time, clock time. Time is one and the same. That is the absolutist picture of time. Then came Einstein's theory of special relativity in 1905, and another 10 or 11 years later, theory of general relativity. These two theories turned the understanding of time on its, turned it upside down. So we call it the relativistic understanding of time. Einsteinian physics opened the big domain of relativistic time. Time for you and time for somebody going on a spaceship at speeds closer to that of light. Light has the speed of 300,000 kilometers per second approximately. In fact, slightly less than 300,000 kilometers per second. So if a spaceship were to go at speeds, let's say 90% as much of that of light, 92%, 95%, 98% as much of the speed of light, then time slows down. Closer to speed of light, more it slows, and Einstein made an unbelievable postulate. If someone were to travel at the speed of light, 100%. If speed of light is nearly 300,000 kilometers per second, let's say one of us, don't ask how, but suppose theoretically, one of us were to travel by a spaceship at the speed of light, what will happen to time? Time stops. Time stops. Because slowing down further, and then time stops. Unbelievable. So I read today in the internet that Einstein, in one of his memoirs, wrote something, some kind of an essay, but he began with the words, Newton, forgive me. Newton, forgive me. That is how he started his memoir and went on to write his new perception of time. So in physics, for this webinar, let me sum up the thoughts in this way. In physics, they did two amazing things in the beginning of 20th century. One is, they said time is not absolute. Time is different for different people. So no wonder Einstein deeply appreciated Eastern mysticism, Bhagavad Gita, and so on. For in Gita it is said long back, time is different from human beings, time is different from Brahma. So Gita didn't say Brahma was all the time going on a spaceship. Leave aside that. So we need to find out. But Brahma's time is different, our time is different. All right. The second postulate, second discovery is all along before, time was one compartment, space, which could be described in three coordinates, x, y, z. Or as some of you who remember your mathematics know, it could be some other coordinates too. There are spherical coordinates, there are cylindrical coordinates, where it is some radius, some height, some angle, and so on in the cylindrical coordinates. But the most well-known coordinates of space are x, y, z, where the three coordinates are perpendicular to each other. So x, y, z in one camp, and t, time, is another camp. This was the picture. It was in the early 20th century that this amazing discovery came about. X, Y, Z, and T are a continuum. Keeping any three constant, one could move in the fourth. Just as within space, I can keep X value and Y value the same and move in Z direction. Or keep X and Z same, move in Y direction. Likewise, it was proposed, and a whole lot of support, evidence, whole lot of verification all took place. You could keep X, Y, and T constant and move in Z. Or, I need not extend further, keep any of the three at a certain value, move backward or forward in the fourth one. So, this almost opened idiomatically the Pandora's box. Whole lot of possibilities arose. Time travel. And then scientists, in fact, grappled with the issue. Is it possible to go backwards in time? Einstein said it's never possible because according to him, that can happen when you travel, when something can move faster than light. And he said, simply nothing can move faster than light. But on and off, there have been speculations. In fact, we should be proud that a scientist of Indian origin, George Sudarshan, who died, I think, last month. Yeah, last month he died in Austin, Texas, USA. He had done quite a lot of work on this, about particles which presumably move faster than speed of light. So, time shook. Time is not a separate camp, but it is a continuum. It's a member of the four-member continuum, X, Y, Z, T, or space-time continuum. And then space also was described as curved. So certain discoveries about time are rather mind-blowing. It is also said, let me say this and conclude for this session. It is also said in modern physics that time slows down not just because of movement at a speed closer to that of light. Time slows down when one is in the vicinity of extreme gravity. Extreme gravity can make time slow down. I myself will study a little more on that and share in another webinar. But for now, my only purpose was to help all of us get a new perspective of time. Time is not as simple as we imagine, and philosophically and from a spiritual perspective, time and the self. Self, once more, with the S in lowercase, which is popularly or unpopularly called as the ego. Time and the ego rise together and fall together. When there is no ego, there is the perception of the timeless. In the timeless, there is real freedom. This world is in space and time. The events in this world, birth and death, getting rich and losing wealth, getting young and then getting old, a million such things are in the domain of time. In the timeless, we don't get old, we don't die. No wonder Deepak Chopra's very popular book was titled Ageless Body, Timeless Mind. A very wonderful title, and he again dwelt on some of these topics in his own style. Let me pause here, and it is time for you to ask a question or two. Om Namah Shivaya. Let me see. Okay. There are some newcomers too. And do I see any raised hand? Not yet. People are taking time to raise their hand. Yes. From Hyderabad, we have unable to empower that microphone. Naveen Rao. Why am I unable to turn the mic? Attendee self-muted. Naveen ji, can you check on your side? It looks like it says it's self-muted. Maybe you have to unmute your microphone. Yes, now it's on. Kindly, please ask your question.
Yeah. So we have a case of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa,
right,
who could have had the visions before any visitor came.
Yeah.
He could see, let's say, a day in advance.
Correct. Yeah.
So what exactly happening there? That let's say he is using his mind, like let's say he's always in meditation, and in this meditation he's in a timeless state. And while he's coming from his meditation, or he's coming out of meditation, or in samadhi,
Correct.
In samadhi,
Correct.
his mind is somehow going into future.
Yeah.
Mind is intersecting the future, and then he sees something, and then when the actual event happens, he actually gets surprised to see that person. He says, "Oh, this is the same fellow I saw yesterday." And then, we also have these rishis, we read in Puranas, they have this Divya Drushti and all these things. So are they using their mind? Yeah.
Oh yes, Trikala Drushti. Yeah. So the rishis and the sage Ramakrishna, all of them had siddhis. So the siddhis are within the domain of the mind. The mind of you and me also has unbelievable powers, but we have not tapped them. From the Vedanta perspective, the siddhis are also within the adhyaropa, within the adhyasa. So this adhyasa within the avidya bhumi, the framework of reference or frame of reference of ignorance, or I would prefer the word error. See, error is not in a derogatory sense. Error is used in the sense of that's not the ultimate truth. The ultimate truth is timeless. So one notch below, you have this erroneous perception. Okay. So Ramakrishna, on one hand, used those siddhis, and let me hasten to clarify, when Ramakrishna would go into future, it was more a sport, not out of egoistic desire or fear. An unenlightened man would go to future or past out of these emotions. What will happen to me? And look how wonderful I was and where have I come now? All this judgment. Sri Ramakrishna or all those enlightened siddhas go back and forth like a leela. So these are possible.
So they basically were using time as an instrument, thought as an instrument to go back and forth.
Exactly. And they had a mission to perform. So probably when he received Narendra Vivekananda first time, he was excited. He said, I have been waiting for you for years. So all that drama, all that excitement is his way of doing his job, preparing Narendra for the great role he had to play eventually.
Okay. But in Vedanta, Swamiji, just follow-up question. In Vedanta, for anything to happen, there should be space.
Correct. Correct.
Space contains everything. So based on our prior lecture and this one, so if we say, space is there first and then comes the time.
Yeah.
That's my understanding,
Yeah, that is space, Atmanaha Akasha Sambhutaha. In terms of subtlety, Sukshmata, space comes first. And time comes later because time is a product of the 5 elements. From the sattvic aspect of the 5 elements, mind came, and in mind there is time. In fact, we must examine in the next session the relation between thought and time. How in the Vedanta we regard time as coming into picture when there are thoughts flowing. When thoughts are flowing, there is time. So time that way, in the order of subtlety, Sukshma and Sthula, subtle and gross, time is on a lower rung, space is on a upper rung. But otherwise, we can't say time came later in time. Because time itself is the axis. Yeah, you can't say time came later in time. Before time came, there was no time, right? No axis of time.
Yeah.
So it's a sukshmatva.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Welcome. Let's see. I'm scrolling down because at one go I can't see all the names. Okay, there are, I think, some text questions probably. Oh no, it's not text question. Yeah, if there are text questions, we can take them up. All right. Looks like you all have much to ponder now. Yeah, if some of you are a little touched by this matter, take a look at the YouTube video when it comes within a day or so. And you are welcome to, in fact, next Sunday, I will present a webinar on reflecting on causation, because space, time, and causation are the 3 components of the show called universe, our life, our existence. And the Vedanta would say, beneath and behind these threefold appearance, space, time, and causation, there is the truth of Brahman, Tattvamasi, which you really are. Realize it. We'll take up reflecting on causation, but before we quit, we have Mr. Pejawar to ask a question. Yes, Manmohanji.
Yes, thanks for this series of lectures. I find very fascinating because it impinges on science also in many different ways. In fact, many of these concepts I was first exposed to in educational television here, exploring the space and time, Big Bang, and so on. Now, what I think somewhere last time, I remember saying Brahman created, first there was nothing, then he created space, then he created time, and then he created, there was a sequence of creations. And, this life as we know it originated much later. And we are in our body, which is a representation of Brahman in a way, but it is part of the Maya, which is now only Brahman is timeless in a true sense. However, these lectures indicate to us that you can be timeless. That means when you destroy your ego or bring it down considerably, you can approach that timelessness in a way because you are approaching more like Brahman. And that is the Kathopanishad, everything says self-realization is nothing but you are approaching or you are the divine within. That means you are identifying within yourself as that spark of divinity, which is part of Brahman. So that means you can, despite this body, you are approaching this timelessness because of your power of thinking, actually. And that way you can see how death ceases to be fearful because you feel like it's the body that is dying.
Yes.
And so that's a remarkable concept because initially we are taught to believe that Brahman is the only one that overcomes time and space and everything else. But then having these teachings slowly, owning it and trying to understand the true meaning of it, you feel that you can approach that. That means your stress is gone, your importance to wealth and time, and whether you are going to be there for your grandkids' wedding, all of that becomes immaterial.
Right, well said.
And that is, I feel, one of the remarkable phenomena, because recently I was with my cousin and we got into this topic because there was a third person who was also into a little bit of self-realization. I usually don't open my mouth at all because that people think that I'm like putting myself above anybody else. It ceases to be a subject talk and it becomes like a self, aggrandizement type of thing. What I said, it is not, finally I said, it is not like I'm telling you to think this way to be overcoming the stress, but if you want to be stressed less, this is one of the approaches to do it. But you have to study. And it's interesting because initially I was of the same thinking and it took me 60 years of lectures, finally, slowly with these things becoming slightly more clear. And I'm sure there are a lot of things I still need to understand, but it's a very, very, very fascinating concept in my opinion. Now I have nothing but admiration for this because I'm sure even Einstein and all have traveled or read in their time and have been deeply influenced by Indian thinking for that reason. Because these things are like groundbreaking thinking that was not, in fact, some of this thinking I found first in the expose of Cosmos. You know, there was a show called Cosmos by Carl Sagan.
Yeah, Carl Sagan, yeah.
And 30 years, 1980, it was broadcast, which and Carl Sagan is the one who talked about the Big Bangs and Vedic cycles that Vedas had mentioned. And so thank you. That is just a comment, I think. And
welcome. Your comments so well expressed are heartening. Thank you, Ravan. So with that, let's see. I think there is. We will close for now. Next Sunday, again, there will be a webinar. Namaste. Dhanyavad.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.